Well, it is week number 4 here, and we are in September, mid-September, and really Big Ten conference play has not started yet, and I'm really looking forward to the Big Ten conference play because that's what matters to me. That's what matters to whoever's going to the playoff, and rankings mean something until week 8. But right now, we're sitting at several Big Ten teams ranked top 25, to include the surprise Illinois. We've got two teams that are, excuse me, four teams that have played conference play. So two of them are 1-0, two of them are 0-1. Doesn't mean much, but welcome, Respect the Midwest podcast, and to Big Ten Talk, week number 4. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Glad, excuse me, glad to be here. Glad to talk some Big Ten football. And yeah, Illinois being ranked, I don't know that's gonna last for a long time. It
Well,
is funny to see them below Northern Illinois still. I do think that is kind of funny. They're not even the highest ranked team in Illinois. Um,
yeah, crazy.
but yeah, I'm glad to be back. Glad we're getting some more conference games this week. I know next week is when we'll really start to see all these flow in, and so that'll be a really fun episode. But for now, we'll just take what we can get.
Okay, so we're going to start chronologically, work with Friday here. Friday, there's a game, and it's the game we were just talking about. It is Illinois versus Nebraska. So it's Illinois at Nebraska. Illinois is ranked number 24. Nebraska's number 22. Who's your pick?
I mean, I'm gonna go Nebraska just solely based off the fact that we saw. It's interesting. Both big wins that both teams have had so far, right? Nebraska beating Colorado, Illinois beating Kansas, right? Well, next week Kansas went and lost at home to UNLV. So I think the whole country may have overrated Kansas a little bit with how careless their quarterback has been with the ball. It's been pretty concerning and disappointing to see, honestly. And then Nebraska, Colorado went out and say what you will about Colorado, but they played a game against Colorado State that they haven't played that kind of football ever since Dion's been there. They won at the line of scrimmage and they dominated against a team that was motivated to beat them, probably more than any other. So that was actually pretty impressive, I thought, from the Buffaloes. And because of that, I'm more impressed with Nebraska's win. And so that's why I'm going to take the Cornhuskers. They are at home. It's going to be another night game against a ranked team now. I think that just adds more motivation for them.
Yeah, how crazy is it that the Illinois Nebraska game means something in September? I was very surprised to see that Illinois was 3-0 because they've been very bad for many years, bottom dweller team. Uh, but again, it look we've seen Rutgers, Indiana, Michigan State. We've seen a lot of teams go 3-0, 4-0, even 5-0. Maryland, I think a couple years ago was 5-0 and top 25, and they ended up just getting destroyed once they got into the thick of Big Ten play. And that's what I'm getting at here. Is this Illinois Nebraska game means a lot now? I don't think you will ever see this game in November, but because it
No.
is early, it makes it big, and that's what I love about college football. It's on Fox, so everybody will get to watch that. I have this being a very, very, very close game. I have Illinois actually coming up like maybe winning at the half. I think their offense, excuse me, I think Illinois' defense is better than Nebraska's defense. This is going to be a battle of defenses. So there's a really good chance that it's either going to be, my pick is it's going to be a high scoring game, like 40 to 38, or it's going to be like a 16 to 7 or something. That's my guess. But
You've
I will,
seen all this. You've seen all this stuff with Nebraska's quarterback, like being trying to be a clone of Mahomes, right? Have you seen that?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like he wears the same number, has the
it's,
same
yeah,
hairstyle, does all the same celebrations. Like all his little arm throws that he does are very reminiscent of him. I think it's. I don't mean. I think it's kind of stupid. I think it's obvious that he is trying to pull that off, and maybe
yeah.
he ends up being as good. Who knows? But I mean, you know, it's just it's kind of funky, and I would kind of like to see him be humbled a little bit. I don't think it's going to happen this week, but I can't wait for that Ohio State game because he is going to be humbled in that one.
I have next up Marshall, the Thundering Herd at the Ohio State University. I've got Ohio State winning this one big time.
Yeah, it's a rough week when Fox uses this as their big noon game.
It,
Um,
I know it's on at 11, but this is the big noon game.
it is the whole crew's going to be there, and Gus
What?
Johnson, Joel Klatt are going to call this game.
It's the
It's
first
going to
real
be a
game Ohio
snoozer.
State's played all year. So
I wouldn't even call this real. I mean, it's going to be a snoozer. It's going to be over at halftime.
on a
You know,
scale of one to
not too
ten,
much thought.
you're putting the upset alert at a 1 out of 10. You don't think Marshall has any
No,
ability
no,
at
no,
all to
no,
win
no,
this
no,
game?
no. I wouldn't say one. I'd probably say zero.
That's pretty good. Okay, Ohio State with the win. Straight up picks here. Let's see. Is it Charlotte at
Hmm.
Indiana? That's the Chanticleers, I believe.
Charlotte's the 49ers. Coastal
Oh yeah,
Carolina is the
the not
Chanticleers.
just the Niners
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Hmm.
So Indiana should win this game, no problem.
Hey, that win that they had at UCLA last week was
It's legit.
utterly impressive.
It was legit.
Yeah, I mean UCLA is not a good team, but I didn't think Indiana was that much better than UCLA. So the fact that
Well,
they won by
it's
as much as they did
yeah. It's also
was really
the thing
impressive.
about Indiana is you can't ever sleep on like original Big Ten or not original Big Ten teams, but teams that have been in the Big Ten since it was the Big Ten back in the '90s.
Yeah,
Um, they've been playing a long time, and they attract a lot of talent in their coaching staff because it's a pretty renowned school for basketball and not so renowned for football, but they
yeah,
attract a lot of big names just because it's a Big Ten school, and you got to remember that. Okay,
yeah, and
Villanova at Maryland. Man, I've got Maryland winning this one.
yeah. I'll take Maryland. Just one more quick note on Indiana. Like their head coach Kurt Signetti, if you remember, he comes from James Madison. Remember how James
Mm,
Madison was sneaking into the top 25
yeah,
each of these last couple of years. So I guess I'm surprised
it
they
makes
look
a
this
big
good in year
difference.
one, but it does make a big difference. And now he's going to a school, like you mentioned, that has a lot of resources, particularly due to its basketball now, but hopefully he can use some of those for football. But concerning this Maryland game, this would be a great basketball game. Speaking of which,
Dude, it
Maryland
would.
Villanova
Yeah, yeah,
would be really fun to watch in basketball, but not in football. I think Maryland's going to win this one relatively easily.
yeah. I think so too. So I'm picking Maryland. This is going to be a blowout of blowouts. You saw how Kent performed. Didn't they play Tennessee
Yeah, West
last
Tennessee.
week? And Tennessee beat them by like 60 points. I've got Penn State doing the same thing. It's at Penn State. Kent's just there to get paid.
Yeah, now don't forget a couple weeks ago, Penn State really struggled with another MAC team in Bowling Green. So I mean, it's certainly not out of the question for Penn State to struggle again. And honestly, if Tennessee and Penn State were playing each other, I'd probably pick the Vols. So I'm not saying Penn State is in any danger of losing this game, but in terms of
Okay.
comparing the two, I mean, Penn State is certainly more likely to get upset.
You're saying that Kent State has a better chance of beating Penn State than Marshall does of Ohio State.
100%, 100%, 110%.
Man, I hope
Yeah.
Kent State scores a little bit. Okay.
Oh, I do too. I do too.
Other than Nebraska Illinois game, you've got game of the year so far in the Big Ten. USC at Michigan. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it was Michigan Texas, but that's over. If USC beats Michigan, that puts Michigan at 2-2. And might I say, for those of you that return to watch this channel, I don't understand the upset. Like why Michigan fans are just blowing over their whole last year thing. I don't have time to get into that, but that's kind of ticking me off that Michigan fans are completely they think everything's over. And I say that because the remnants of last year after they lost after the first couple it's been a long time since they lost when they lost to Texas. And that does something to a program. It either does one of two things. It either catapults you into a better mindset like hey, we are vulnerable, or and you do well, or it puts you in this mindset of oh my goodness, now God forbid we lose another game. USC has come out to be a better team. They've already played a big game and won. Michigan played that big game and lost. So I think USC has the momentum here. Even though Michigan won last week, they're not going to erase what happened with Texas. So I think USC is going to win this game. It should be a great game. If Michigan can figure out their quarterback situation, did I lose you? So, all right, you're back. Well, so I was saying that I think this ought to be USC winning because Michigan needs to figure out their. Do they have the quarterback situation figured out? That's my question.
Yeah, well, the coach came out this week and said that Orgy will get the start. Um, which again, I don't really know why he wasn't the starter to begin with. I'm not saying he's much better, and clearly, if they thought Warren was better in training camp, then I mean, who's telling how bad Orgy's going to look? But and you've said this before, like how much can you really take away from training camp? Like I understand, like quarterbacks aren't getting hit, they're not really seeing real game situation, and it was clear from their first game against Fresno State that Davis Warren wasn't going to be the guy, and so I think it's in their best interest to just start Orgy because at least he can run, at least he does one thing well as opposed to Warren who does nothing well. So
Yeah, I can tell you, I played competitive football for several years, and I can, just you don't even have to play football to understand that preseason stuff is just preseason stuff. Once the games start, all of the flaws come out, but also you got to remember about those people who are in camp or in practice doing two a days. You're only practicing against yourself, so you don't really get a chance to see where somebody can be good at also. And when you practice against your own team for a long time, or even like a practice squad, uh, it's you guys know each other, so you know their tendencies. You don't have that when you play real games. So it's gonna be a great game. I mean, this Saturday in the Big Ten is full of great games, and we've had it every week, so this has been great. But I've got USC winning.
yeah, I'm going to take USC. You know, before the season, I thought this was an obvious Michigan win. I just didn't see them being as bad as they were. I wouldn't be shocked at all if
Well,
they did pull this out because I think they match up well with USC just stylistically. Um,
yeah,
but
because the game can
given
go
what
either
we've
way.
yeah, but just given from what we've seen from both teams, Michigan has given me zero reason to believe that they could pull this one out. And so, again, it's weird
Yeah, and that, and
that
I,
it's
and I,
been
f- I- you said it. We talked earlier on game day. Actually, we talked that Michigan should have blown out their opponent on Saturday, and they absolutely did not. I mean, I think they won by 10 points.
yeah, 28-18 over Arkansas State, who
Yeah,
is not they are not a good like Fresno State was different because they're kind of a good Group of Five team and they're about to join the Pac-12 actually, but Arkansas State is nowhere near even Fresno's caliber. So yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
in the big house. Okay, UCLA at LSU. This ought to be an easy game for the Tigers, ranked number 16. They played well on Saturday, barely won, but they did play
Yeah,
well. I mean, West Virginia is, or excuse me, South Carolina is a really good team, and South Carolina looks to be really good this year. So, I mean, good win for LSU, and going back home, you know, I think they're going to clobber UCLA.
yeah, it's pretty set that UCLA has gotten to this point. I don't see a bright future for them at all. And yeah, you talked about LSU. I mean, they were down 17-0 versus South Carolina, and they could have easily rolled over and died, and they didn't. They fought back and got the stops they needed to
Yeah,
get, and took advantage of South Carolina's quarterback getting hurt, and they got the win. That's really all you can ask for. It's kind of the SEC is certainly a survive and advance kind of a conference, and that
that
was a
that
win. That was a game they couldn't afford to lose.
that game,
So
yeah, that game really made me mad because I lost in the pick'em and I really need the friggin' points. Okay, this
should have
speaking of
had it.
pick'em, speaking of pick'em, Rutgers and Virginia Tech. This is a pick'em game on ESPN. Um, I don't know. I really don't know. I just looked at my pick'em. I made him today. I've got Rutgers beating Virginia, so I'm just going to stick with that. Virginia Tech, but this can go either way. The line is like next to nothing. I mean, I'm just going to flip a coin and say Rutgers. I have no reason to believe that either team's going to win.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the line because I saw earlier this week it was at 5. And I kid you, this is all 100% true. It was at 5. Virginia Tech was favored by 5. I closed my phone. I reopened my phone. It's down to 3.
Yeah.
Clearly, somebody smart sees something in Rutgers and put a heavy load on that, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, two.
And so,
Yeah, 2 points is a lot in a betting spread.
100%. And so, I gotta be honest. I think I'm gonna ride with you on. Hold on. See, thinking it is one thing, saying it out loud is another.
Come on, it's the
I'm also
birthplace
a
of
big
college football.
I'm a big believer in the bounce back theory. And so, because of this, I'm going to stick with my principles and pick Virginia Tech because obviously they
Ooh.
lost to Vanderbilt week 1. This is their next big game after that. So, I'm going to take Virginia Tech, but I will be rooting for Rutgers. Don't get it twisted. I
Okay,
will be rooting
so
for
you're
the
gonna
Big Ten.
say
I will be rooting for
you're
Rutgers to
gonna
win
say
the game.
putting your money on Virginia Tech, but all right, Northwestern at Washington. So it's the battle of the purple teams. Both of them. One's a dog, one's a cat. I don't know. Huskies versus Wildcats. I'm gonna say Washington should win this game. Washington has
I
every
agree.
reason to win because Northwestern unfortunately lost. And now, if Northwestern was 3-0 and they had beat Duke in regulation, but unfortunately, Duke beat them in double overtime. And you know, you gotta go with the home team in these situations because Washington's not very good. Northwestern's not very good this year. I've got them both middle of the road. Um, I'm gonna go with Washington. Unfortunately, I want Northwestern to win because that's my team, but I think Washington's gonna end up winning this one, and I hope it's not a blowout.
Actually, yeah, I don't see this one being a blowout at all. And I really think Northwestern is going to be able to stay in the game. Not a huge fan of Washington. I'm still going to pick them to win, but again, it's not because I think Washington's good. I think if this game were at Northwestern, I think it would be a really, really interesting
Yeah,
um, pick 'em here. And I thought Washington was going to beat Washington State last week. Now, I think part of that was me underrating Washington State a little bit. I think they're a lot better of a team
yeah,
than we
obviously,
may realize,
yeah.
but clearly, I mean, clearly they are. They whipped up on Texas Tech the week before, and then they come out and win at Washington
They whipped up on
the
Texas
week
Tech, yeah.
they whipped them, which was very surprising.
And
So,
and and
um,
and Texas Tech, believe it or not, like not to get sidetracked, but Texas Tech's in a pick'em game, and I'm like, I don't think that's to see who they play. Yeah, Arizona State versus Texas Tech is a pick'em. I find that kind of weird, but maybe Washington State's just that good. And
yeah,
if
maybe they
Washington
are.
played
So,
Washington State that good, then maybe Washington's the better team here.
yeah, I'm gonna pick Washington just because they're at home, because I think their top end talent is slightly better, but it's not.
But you know,
But overall, I wouldn't say their roster is all that much better than Northwestern's
but
at
you
this
know,
current moment.
Northwestern tends to win on the road a lot. Like they're a road team for some reason. So this could really it's a 6 o'clock Fox Sports One game.
Six
It'll be
bucks.
nice. Yeah. Okay, next game
Yeah,
Iowa at Minnesota. Also a pick'em game. ESPN loves the Big Ten apparently, so I'm gonna go with Iowa here. Um, Again, toss up because Minnesota's Minnesota. They have beat some big teams in the last couple of years. They got a great coach. I think that Fleck is probably one of the better coaches in the Big Ten, and had he gone anywhere else other than Minnesota, he would have probably been. He could have carried Michigan. He could have carried Ohio State. I truly believe that. Iowa, although they are sitting on 27 years with what's his face coaching, so yeah, it's
a few of these games this week, I think I would consider this game to be in this category of ones that like I'm picking, but I'm going to be rooting against it. I'm going to pick Iowa to win the game. Um, Again, not with any sort of reverence or any sort of excitement. I mean, I think
yeah.
I kind of
I want to
well,
hear from Iowa
again,
fans. I don't hear from them that much anymore. It's like they
well, now they
disappeared.
lost to they lost to Iowa State, so you probably won't be hearing anything from for a while. Yeah, this is easily the
That's
hardest
true.
game for me
That's
this
true.
week. I'm still kind of refining it in my head. I'll stick with my gut, but again, it's a nasty, nasty game in the
It's on
worst way
NBC.
possible. So
It's a primetime game. It's
you know what? Give me Minnesota. Give me Minnesota.
yeah. I
Final pick.
it's tough.
Give me
I'm gonna go with
Minnesota.
Iowa. Um, all right. Michigan State at Boston College. Now, if Michigan State wins this game, I would be completely surprised. Boston College looks to be good, but then again, their big win over Florida State is looking to be less and less of a big win, and they played them very close. However, Michigan State not starting the season 0-3 is a surprise. So I'm going to go with Michigan State wins at Boston College. I'm going to go with the Big Ten win here. It's going to be a tough
Yeah,
game to win, but I think they're going to.
I really hope they do, man. I really, really hope they do. Again, this is like the fourth game in a row where I'm picking not because I want the team to win, but just because I'm trying to be smart about this and trying to pick with my head. Although I did just flip from Iowa to Minnesota, so maybe I'm liable
You're
to do it
picking
again. But
Boston College here?
give me Boston College
Ooh.
again. I don't want them to win. I was impressed with how they played at Missouri, though. You do have to give them that credit. They did give Missouri a good game last week.
See, that's the reason why I
So
think it's going to be impressive when Michigan State does beat them. I think Michigan. I don't think they're back. I don't think Michigan State's back. I don't think they're going to be what they were 10 years ago. But I will
no,
say that Michigan State looks to be maintaining damage control. They've still got some recruits going. I mean, can you name me the Michigan State quarterback right now?
yeah, Aiden Childs.
Okay.
Aiden
So,
Childs and Nick Marsh, and they're a great quarterback wide receiver duo, but they are really, really young and they're going to need some time
but
to
the
fully
rest of
polish
football
themselves
world
off.
cannot do that. The rest of usually we know who the Michigan State quarterback is. And truthfully, I don't think I'm just going to say this. I don't think they've had a great one since Kirk Cousins, and we all know how he panned out in the NFL. All right, Purdue at Oregon State. Um,
Ugh,
I'm picking Oregon State here.
this is a puke game of the week. This is a Notre Dame whipped up on Purdue last week, a result that I certainly didn't see coming. Um,
They beat them so bad that I felt like bad for Purdue because it was at Purdue,
right, yeah.
and people left the
Um,
stands in the fourth quarter. I was like,
there was
what?
actually a part of me that was going to try to go to that game this year, and I'm very glad I didn't. So um, I'll take Oregon State as well.
The
I
Beavs.
think a Big Ten team having to go all the way out there is kind of a it's not
It's a
great.
2 hour
It's not a
difference.
great experience.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
so
but I
really
think
they'll be
we're
playing at 9:30 central. Like Purdue normally plays 9:30 Central Time, unless they're in that weird part of the east of Indiana that is Eastern Time. But
oh yeah, I don't know.
doesn't
Um,
matter. It's Oregon State. They're look. Oregon State has nothing to lose.
yep.
Nothing to lose. So again, neither does Purdue. So hopefully
Yeah.
it's a good game. I got Oregon State winning this one though, unfortunately, because it's the Big Ten, and that is the last of the games. So Uh, state of the Big Ten's pretty good. Several ranked teams. A couple teams aren't playing this week, but uh, I'm just going to have to say that Ohio State's still my power ranking number one. And then it goes Oregon and Penn State and then Michigan.
Not
If
USC.
Well, I got USC below Michigan. Now, if USC beats Michigan, which I think they
Hmm.
should, then I'm going to rank USC above Michigan. But if Michigan beats USC, I've got Michigan being the fourth best team in the Big Ten right now still because they played Texas. You have to absolutely count that game, but Penn State hasn't played anybody important. So they played, I think, West Virginia week one,
West Virginia.
but it was
Hmm.
a dominated game with a weather delay. They looked really good versus West Virginia, and Penn State has a lot to come back. Like they need revenge on the Big Ten really bad this year. So
They do.
so yeah, I've got the power rankings: Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. I'm sorry, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, and then everybody else. And that's yet to be seen. I don't think USC should be number 11, but unfortunately, the powers that be that do the polls have them there. I don't know what else to say. But if they beat Michigan, then they deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, I would put them at four. I think they've proven enough to be ahead of Michigan right now. But
Well, I mean, obviously the poll people think so too, but
yeah,
I would have waited.
Nebraska. Yeah, and it's really sad because I thought Iowa was going to end up being a team that could fight for the top this year, and clearly they haven't changed very much. I do think Nebraska is on the outside looking in of the contenders. If Michigan loses this game, I think they're gone. I'm going to take them completely out of my contender rankings. Again, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt because they haven't lost a Big Ten game since like 2021. I don't think so. I'm gonna give them one more week to prove that they're still a contender. And if they lose to USC, then they're done. Get them out. Get them out.
Yeah, because 2-2, you can't start off a season. I mean, in my mind, and expect to make
Yeah,
the playoffs. So I'm gonna
yeah.
pull up the standings real quick, and I'm gonna see something that just hit me. I wasn't planning on talking about it, but um, of the undefeated teams in the Big Ten, and I'm just gonna list them here from top to bottom. Which dark horse do you think will be undefeated in Week 6? So you've got Indiana, Michigan State, Illinois, Nebraska. So one of those two teams is going down. But Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Rutgers, and USC. Those are the only unbeatens in the Big Ten. So I'm going to actually say the unbeaten teams that I see in the Big Ten, I'm going to say that Nebraska, Ohio State, and Penn State in Week 6 will be undefeated. So let
So
me
when
just
does
pull this up here.
not Oregon?
Well, because Oregon plays. Let me pull up Oregon's schedule. Oregon plays. Let's see, Ohio State um, in 3 weeks. So that'll be
Yeah,
I guess that'll be week. It will be their sixth game.
yeah.
So because of the bye, so they
Okay.
don't. They have Oregon does not play this weekend. So I guess maybe I'm saying that at the end of October 12th, after week 6, I think it might technically be week 7 by then. But I've got
Yeah.
Ohio State winning that game. So I don't think. Yeah, sure. Oregon will be undefeated technically week 6, but they'll only have played 5 games. But
Right.
I'm going to say that Ohio State wins that game versus Oregon. But the thing is Nebraska. So
Yeah.
I'm saying Nebraska doesn't have a schedule. Like they don't even play
Nope.
Oregon.
Nope. They don't have a tough game until Ohio State, really, on paper at least. Now again, it is Nebraska. We've done this song and dance before.
Yeah.
Again, they beat Colorado, but I don't really think if you're a team that can bully them, you can just pound them all game, and it's not going to be an issue. So you know, pause. But I'm really a fan of what Nebraska's got going on right now. I think they have found an identity. Um, so
They
give me them to be undefeated by week 6 or 7, and really up until that Ohio State game.
so Nebraska has to only beat, and this is a really good point. So for you Nebraska fans, Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Indiana are your next 4 games. That's a 7-0 record going into Ohio State. If because I believe Ohio State will be undefeated still. So this could actually be the marquee Big Ten game. And then even if Nebraska loses to Ohio State, they have one big game against USC by then. So the only good teams that Nebraska plays this year, I was surprised Illinois, so yet to be determined. But if they beat Illinois, they only have 2 games that they really have to win. And if they lose just one of those 2 games, you're looking at Nebraska possibly in the Big Ten championship game.
100%.
I
Yeah, 100%.
do you agree? What other team do you
Yeah.
think on paper should go 11-1 or 12-0 other than Ohio State and Oregon? And Oregon does not play,
Penn
but
State.
Oregon plays Ohio State. So you've got Oregon playing Ohio State. If Ohio State beats Oregon and Oregon beats Nebraska, so it could. I would say right now it's looking like there's 3 teams, possibly 4. USC, Oregon, Nebraska, Ohio State are my picks right today as standing for four teams that could compete for the championship in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I'd throw Penn State in there too. They don't really have a tough schedule either, other than when they host Ohio State, and then I
Yeah,
believe they do go to USC. But I mean, I think they can split those games at
well,
minimum.
you got a good point.
Um, Now again, USC is better. I think USC is better than we thought they were going to be, so that game becomes a little bit tougher. Um, but I would put Penn State in that category as well. Just again, given their schedule, they don't play Oregon, they don't play Michigan this year, so that's kind of where I would go with that.
Yeah, so I'm looking right now, and it looks like they play Illinois next week, and then they play USC and Ohio State. Those are their three big games. So, yeah, Penn State has a little bit tougher road than Nebraska. Although, yeah, that's a good point. So there's five. Yeah, cannot take out Penn State. But I'm not putting Michigan in that category at all. Even if they beat USC this week, I'm not
No,
throwing Michigan in the contend for championship at all because of the way they lost to Texas.
yep, I
They
agree.
got throttled. They got throttled.
They got bullied,
And they
straight
played
up bullied.
Arkansas State so close. Like I was worried that Arkansas State might make it even closer. So I mean,
Yeah,
earlier in the
it's
game,
embarrassing.
very
It's
embarrassing.
embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more to say about this week. It's going to be a great Saturday again. So,
Yeah,
any
I'm looking
last
forward to.
words?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to sitting back and watching some more ball. What are the two other big games this week? USC, Michigan, Tennessee, Oklahoma. I think that's the biggest one, right? I think that's where game day is going to be. That's going to be the big Saturday night game is Oklahoma and their struggles the last couple of weeks. Are those real? And then we're going to find out if Tennessee is who we think they are. So it's again, it's still very very early in the season. So I'm very excited to see where these teams lie. Also in the Big 12, there's a big game, Utah and Oklahoma State. Both of those teams are undefeated. Cam Rising, the Utah quarterback, is going to play apparently, which is a huge deal for them. Um, so yeah, there's some pretty big games this week that are going to go a long way in determining where which teams are going to sit in the driver's seat and which teams are going to have to scratch and claw their way back to the top.
Here's something that's interesting. I want to get your take because you're an Ohio State fan. What is your when you look at Syracuse? Do you think that they're going to win the ACC now that you've seen them play and with the hype that the quarterback
No,
has?
well, first off, I don't think the quarterback is actually that good, but um, no, I don't. I don't. I think
Can
them.
you even say his
They're
name?
so far away. Yeah, Honda McCord. They're so far away from where,
Honda
even
McCord.
honestly, again, if Clemson, I mentioned this last week, but if
Well, let me get
Clemson,
back into this though. But do you not like McCord now? Or do you feel because for me, if I was an Ohio
well,
State fan, I would be glad to get rid of McCord, and I wouldn't be cheering for Syracuse, but I wouldn't be bad mouthing McCord. Why do Ohio State fans not
no,
like McCord? Because he made
it
them lose last year, but that's not
to be
his
honest,
fault. Well, I mean, it is his
no,
fault, but
I think last year we don't have to get into it, but that was more on Ryan Day than anything else.
right, that's what I'm
Um,
saying.
Ryan Day and apparently Honda McCord's dad was kind of a complainer and kind of pressured Ryan Day into making certain decisions he didn't want to. But that's a whole nother podcast. Um, no, I don't think Syracuse is going to win the ACC though. They've still got a lot of work to do with their roster, and I don't think they're even close to Clemson. I think Miami is far and away the best team in that conference right now. So no, I think they're pretty far away from competing for championships, even in the ACC at this point.
Okay, they play Stanford. They're tough. So
I mean,
this
their
is this
schedule is
is they don't
easy as heck.
they play Miami at the very end of the year, so they could play
It,
Miami and then turn right around and play them again.
well, they're one of these teams very similar to Nebraska, who I don't think they're going to be as good as their record says they are. Does that make sense? Like the
Well, I mean, they're
saying
two
is
and
you're
zero,
as
but
good
yeah,
as right at the end of the year. I meant though, like
they're gonna win some games
they're
though.
gonna they're gonna be like a 10-2, 9-3 team that would be equivalent to like a 7-5 or 6-6 team in a different conference with a different schedule. I mean, look, you can only play who's on your schedule. I get that, but they're going to be a team that ends up being ranked at the end of the season who probably didn't actually deserve it.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, we're gonna link up again a week from today. Talk about the next one in week 5. So hey, thanks for joining us. I'm glad you joined us again today. If you made it to the very end of the podcast, please subscribe. It just helps everybody. I don't make any money off of it, but it's just good to have you back. So again, we'll see you next week. Good luck Saturday.